John Wesley knew that these rules were difficult to practice. They were very simple. Everyone could understand them. Everyone could do them, but it's not as easy as one might assume. So his instruction was to just begin. Begin where you are and how you are to practice these rules. And for us, I think the advice is wise. We will never be at a place where we're not too busy, where we're not too hurried, where we're not too tired, where we do not have other things to do. But we are at a place, all of us are at a place where we can determine that this is a priority for us. And so we begin practicing these simple rules for ourselves. The help we get is, first of all, from God. We, as United Methodists and as all Christians, believe in the presence and the power of the Holy Spirit to enable us to live as we are called to live as children of God. So we turn to God and we ask for help to fashion the practices that will fit us. We adapt these rules so that they will fit us. We adapt the time frame that works for us, but the principles remain the same for all of us. So we ask God, first of all, to help us. And if we have a family, we ask our family to help us. Or if we're in a congregation, we ask a congregation to help us, or a class, or a small group. Or if we're a staff, or a conference, an annual conference, could determine that this is the way they want to live together. How wonderful if whenever we met another member of the conference, we could ask each other, how is it going with the rules today? And we could help each other to grow and find different ways of help. But basically we turn to God for help, we turn to others for help, and we are not too hard on ourselves if we happen to stumble along the way. We just start over. This is a part of the healthy self-image that we sometimes forget that God has of us and we should have of ourselves. Even when we fail, we can begin again. So we begin again and practice the rules. If you are as I am, there will be many days when you will come to the end of the day and realize that you have done harm. You've spoken the word inappropriately. You've said a word that was not the most helpful at the particular place, or you may have even done an action, some simple thing like cutting off the driver who was trying to get in your lane on the way to work. This is not the way we want to live, the way we should live, but we can be forgiven, start over with a new page on which to write the story of our faithfulness tomorrow. John Wesley believed that if one lived with the scriptures, they would begin to shape our lives. I think those who have gone before us have made the same discovery. I have discovered this myself. When I first began reading the scriptures every day, the influence may have been negligible. But once you have lived with the scriptures for a year, it has made a difference. And 10 years, it's made a difference. Or 40 years, or 60, or 70 years. It more and more shapes the way you think, the way you respond to the world around you, and certainly the way you understand God and God's will for the world. So I think the practice of the scriptures that we often think is only for Sunday school or only for church or only for Bible study, the practice of living with the scriptures every day as individuals or families or communities is extremely important. The second is the establishment of a pattern of prayer that works for you. Each of us have different ways of praying. Our ways of praying are probably as different as our fingerprints because we're unique. God has made us so. God is infinite, so we would not expect that your way of praying and my way are identical, but we can discover the way that is most helpful for us, that is, that keeps us in a growing relationship with God, that continues to feed our souls, our spirits, continues to provide the guidance, provides both the intimacy and the correction and the forgiveness and the assurance that God has available for all of us. But it will only come when we keep this connection with God alive. So I think each of us must fashion our way of prayer, our way of living, in a way that fits our unique gifts and our unique personalities. Wesley believed that anyone could have a daily practice of prayer, and the way to begin and the place to begin is just where you are, not to wish you had the experience of someone else who grew up, for instance, in a family that prayed every day, or who grew up in the church. But most of us, I think, cry out to God at some point or another. What is it like for us to establish a way where every day we begin our day in conversation with God, listening to God? And for some of us, this will be very different. We might use the formal liturgies of the church. I have a friend who often says that for him prayer is checking in with the home office. For others it is composing their own prayer or writing their prayer, journaling. For others it is a prayer on the run. It is done perhaps even while they're driving to work or while they're doing some other simple task that can also be praying. For still others it is only that moment when they're in complete silence and can be focused upon God more directly, that is meaningful to them and that is helpful to them. But I would say we begin where we are and we trust God to guide us to fulfill that relationship. After all, it is a two-way relationship. It's not just us. How does God communicate with us? How do we hear God? How can we respond to God? When these questions are open and free, we'll be guided and led to a way that just fits us. My wife Beverly and I traveled to Phoenix, Arizona a number of years ago to visit her favorite aunt, who had been very influential in her life and in my life as well. On the way home, we were driving through the desert highlands, I guess, of New Mexico, and it was a warm day, and Beverly was reading beside me while I was driving, and we hadn't spoken to each other for a while. We were listening to some music, and finally I said to her, "We're coming up on a large radar station. You'll want to look around and see it." Well, there was nothing but brown mountains and sand around us. She looked up and quickly looked back to her book, didn't say a word. A couple of minutes I said, "Now Beverly, you'll want to be alert now. We're coming up on this big radar station." She looked up and looked down, thinking, well, he's again mistaken, you know. And pretty soon I said, "Yeah, there it is. See it?" And in the distance we saw this huge globe that was obviously a large radar unit setting in this valley that led up to a large mountain range. And she said to me, "How did you know that?" And I said, "Well, it's just a male thing. We know things like that." And she threatened to strike me, but withheld her frustration. And I said, "No, every time we come close to a radar unit, my hearing aids buzz." And they do. They do. Every unit that's strong, when that sweeps across my hearing aids, they buzz. And my image of this helps me to understand God's grace. They were meant to prevent attacks or aircraft getting into the United States. So radar does not go below the mountains or not through them. So established what is called gap fillers, so that there is no area that is vulnerable or left out. And what we had just come across was a gap filler. But it reminds me of God's grace that Wesley believed and I believe covers the earth, covers all creation. It sweeps over us all the time. We cannot escape it. It is there in all its healing power and strength and goodness. And we're often unaware of it, as we are often unaware of the sweep of the radar, but it's always there. So this grace of God sweeps across us to heal us, to call us to God's self, to nurture us, to sustain us, to guide us, to direct us, to keep us always in God's presence. I think it's a wonderful thought for us to remember that no matter where we are under God's grace. It sweeps across us all the time. And our invitation is to respond to that grace, to open our lives to that grace, and to appropriate it for the way we live. And these three simple rules provide one way for us to open our lives, to accept the grace of God, and to live grace-filled as children of God every day of our lives.